for one of the leading names in news by an increasingly notorious group of hackers called the Syrian Electronic Army. It crippled the New York Times online. We're seeing more big names on the web come under this type of attack. We invited local security researcher Ken Westin into the talk box. You could read his work on tripwire.com. Hacking is nothing new, but we're seeing maybe an increase of sophistication. You know, back in the day, it was the denial of service attack, and now it seems like these things they're taking websites straight down. I think the New York Times was down for hours and then had to publish this bare bones alternative URL to get some content out of there. This is high tech stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what started as, a simple annoyance, right? Like a denial of service attack, come down for a little while. It's becoming increasingly more sophisticated. They're definitely trying to find, different avenues of getting in. In this case, even though the New York Times was able to secure their servers, this was actually from one of their service providers. Basically, a reseller account was hacked for where their domain is registered, and then they were able to get in there and make modifications to the domain name. So it wasn't just shutting down the website, they actually took complete control of the domain. And this is really scary because not only were they able to take control of the website, they're even redirecting people to another website where there was malware. Another concern would be access to all the email accounts on NewYorkTimes.com.
Well, that's where the sort of consumer component comes into this. What do you want to say to people who either, give their information over to the New York Times or subscribe to one of the various news websites? And it's not just news. I mean, it's really anything that's susceptible to this. What should we be thinking about the use of our personal information?
You may want to rethink some of the paywall type services. They have your credit card information. I don't use like Wall Street Journal simply because of that. I don't want to give
Except for today when they took down their paywall, right? You're like, let me check this out. But I mean, we're making jokes, but it's a serious thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have your credit card information, and I'm not personally, into having my credit card information out there. If you do use services online, it's a good idea to replace your card every 6 months. Just a little paranoid, but it's something that you can do because sometimes we forget who has our credit card. And also, do I really need to have a login for some of these websites?
It's good information. What about then switching gears from something like to Twitter? That is free, you're not paying, but you're still sharing a lot of information out there, and who knows what third-party apps you're using to make your Twitter run the way you want it to. But any concerns for people out there in terms of sharing information, or even Facebook, really, or LinkedIn, or anything like that? I mean, where does it end in terms of what's safe?
I think you said something key there that's free, right? And usually, if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. Your information is valuable to some of these companies. Facebook is a good example from advertising and things like that. That's how they generate their revenue. The more they know about you, they can segment that out and they can personalize those ads. So you really need to think about that. But at the same time, there's been a brand hit with some of these hacks with Twitter and things like that, they need to protect their own reputation. And so they're actually offering a lot of security services such as two-factor authentication for your Twitter account, where you log in with your password, but it'll also send you a PIN so you can verify your identity. So even if your password was compromised, you still have another line of defense.
Yeah, and it's not maybe the most intuitive thing to say, I use that. It's not the most intuitive to set up right away, but you can always find someone who knows how to do it, and then it helps. What do you think about what's going on with outgoing Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano saying today that basically the biggest threat to the U.S. is going to be a giant cyber attack?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like me saying I'm here in Oregon, it's going to rain in a month.
So yeah, you're in 100% lockstep with her on this. Yes, it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, major. I mean, how would you define that? I think it's a balance of risk. We see this all the time. They seem to be increasing, but actually the cost of a data breach for companies has been on the decline. The number of records that have been compromised are actually on a decline. The thing is that they're getting bigger. When there is a compromise, it's a larger one where you're hearing a lot more about it in the news. A lot of these cases, too, it's a lot of propaganda as well. The New York Times gets hacked, people start to feel vulnerable, and that's really what they're after, is trying to make people feel unsafe.
Ken Westin with tripwire.com, thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me, appreciate it.
Now we're going to do a little web watch. Edward Snowden is nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. A Swedish